everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode here. Spoiler reviewing AHSOKA episodes 1 and 2 from the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! As you can tell, the boys are very excited to be diving into this conversation here for AHSOKA episodes 1 and 2. Episode 1, Master and Apprentice. Episode 2, Toil and Trouble. Bubble, toil and trouble. So a lot to get into here. We are going to be spoiling both of the episodes. So if you haven't seen them, go and watch them, come back and hang out with us. Or if you don't care, thanks for joining us. Let's have some fun breaking this whole thing down. We are going to break them up into two separate conversations, which we'll take a break in between up, and I'll break them down into essentially two different storylines in each of the episodes and get these two gentlemen's astute and learned points of views on all these things, and toss in some Easter eggs or references to give context for those of you who've maybe not seen all 200 episodes, 200 plus episodes of the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. But let's introduce ourselves first. For those of you who may be new to us, I am the outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and also wondering what Jaime Reyes is doing in our AHSOKA review right now behind John's head.
Oh, look at that. He waited forever to tell me. He likes me to embarrass myself. This is what he enjoys the most. Wait, that's the wrong one. America? No, that's not. There we go. Geek Buddies. All right.
There it is. There it is. Yes. Now I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and feeling very comfortable because John's background makes sense for this review.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, and I'm not wondering why Dr. Henry Jones Jr. is back there, because he's always back there because I don't have a green screen.
Well, I mean, the offer's gone out. The offer's gone out to get you the green screen, but it's a bear sometimes to have one of these things. We shall see. And I'm sure Michael at some point is going to open his up and like a kid on Christmas morning.
It's literally in a giant box in the living room, and I haven't opened it yet, but I'm going to.
It's an enormous box.
That's I'm not going to add to that. All right, anyway, let's get into it here. Let's get overall thoughts, though, gentlemen. Episodes 1 and 2 dropped last night on Disney Plus. 6 p.m. PT, not the 12 a.m. They finally figured out people don't like to stay up until 12 a.m. Had some respect for our work schedules and our work days. So, Michael, I always go to you first. Overall thoughts here on episodes 1 and 2 of AHSOKA to start off this, I think, 6-episode series?
8. I think it's 8.
8. Sorry, 8. Yes, 8.
I mean, listen, Star Wars is back, baby. Star Wars is back. It was great. It was a joy. It was Rebels season 5. Like I was in Star Wars heaven. That being said, there's a couple things that I have a couple quibbles. Okay. I also think that Andor has ruined us for all Star Wars.
Wow.
I think that as much as I loved everything going on in this episode, and I loved what they were doing with AHSOKA, loved what they were doing with Sabine, there's a lot of great things, and I have a ton of thoughts. Mm-hmm. Andor set the bar so high for Star Wars television that anything that's not exactly perfect, you kind of go, man, Andor was real good. So I think that AHSOKA is doing everything right, but it has a lot to live up to in the shadow of what's probably one of the greatest genre television shows ever made with Andor. So that was there. And it was just at different parts, like certain bits of dialogue, certain bits of action. You'd be like, man, Andor's this shadow that you sort of all Star Wars shows live in now. I think Mando season 3 lived in that shadow. I think AHSOKA is in that shadow, and I think everything is in this Andor shadow. That being said, this was like, to your point, if you have watched the 200 plus episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels, this felt like coming home. Yeah. This felt like coming home to some characters you love, and I think did a really nice balancing act of giving you the things that you were expecting, aka the search for Thrawn and Ezra, and giving you things that you weren't expecting. I mean, we knew from the trailers, but this entire relationship between Sabine and AHSOKA, brand new stuff, like stuff that was not really alluded to in Rebels. This is stuff that happened between Rebels and now, and where all of the fans of Star Wars animation are catching up just as much as people who have never checked it out before. So I think that was a really smart move on their part. So I was all in all very encouraged, very happy, and very excited to see where we go next.
Yeah, it's in the phantom zone of years ago. It's been years since we've seen each other, but no real hammering out of the exact amount of years, the exact amount of time that Ezra has gone and Thrawn has been out there. Well, they don't say that in the show. So I'm just saying they've said years. They don't say
they don't say it in the show,
but they don't say
we know. Well, hold on.
No,
we know when the Death Star blew up. We know when the Rebels won.
Right.
And we know from Mandalorian that those adventures take place 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And we know that Ahsoka arrested Morgan Elsbeth in Mandalorian season 2, which is 5 or 6 years after Return of the Jedi. So the years is 5 or 6.
Oh, so now you're waffling on the years. I mean, I feel like you just proved my point. We don't know exactly how many years it's been. That's the only point I was trying to make. Not that we
that sound are the footsteps of Michael Vogel walking backwards.
It's a rarity. Mark it down. Yeah, Shannon, Michael makes some good points, pointing out the stuff that's going on in these first 2 episodes. We have essentially 2 separate factions here. We've got the Ahsoka, Sabine, HERA Syndulla, HUYANG faction here with who knows who else is going to get on board with this. And on the other side, the Morgan Elsbeth, BAYLAN SKOLL, SHIN HAIT faction. But both of them are going to get Thrawn. One to bring him back, one to stop him from coming here. And over the first 2 episodes, we see how these relationships are fractured initially and repaired, and how these relationships are relationships of convenience and also transactional in this whole situation. Plus a lot of the mysticism, a lot of mystical stuff we're going to get into as well, and the way out there stuff that Filoni loves to do, like he did in Rebels. So what do you think of these first 2 episodes directed by Dave Filoni and Steph Green here?
I super enjoyed them. Especially the opening of episode 1. I was like, we are just being thrust into the world of Star Wars. And it's just it's a story being told by people who love this universe. And that's the most, not refreshing thing, because I feel like all of the Star Wars TV we've gotten has been told by people who like Star Wars, but these are people who really know how to do it. Now I do agree with Vogel. There are a couple of quibbles here and there, but they are quibbles. I mean, I think maybe I think this was probably filmed, before Andor was released. I think they may have learned a couple of the wrong lessons from Andor. I think there are some moments where they could pace things up. But thus far, I mean, I'm just super, super happy. I mean, getting to watch Ahsoka Tano in all of her non-Jedi glory. I mean, it has just been a blast. And throughout both episodes, the whole time I'm thinking, God, Ray Stevenson is so good, and just truly, truly tragic that we lost him, because he was just such a phenomenal actor. And I feel like this is probably the series that would have launched him into that next level, where he's kind of been on the precipice since Rome, for the last 15 years or so.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I mean, I can't tell you all fully how tragic it felt watching how great he was in these first 2 episodes. What a presence he was. Even the costumes and the outfits they put him in, the shoulder size. He looked like one of the greatest linebackers ever in the history of the NFL. He's so massive in certain ways, but also this is such a different Ray Stevenson than what we've seen before, right? Because he's much more laid back, whereas with Titus Pullo in Rome, it's a much more aggressive. The Punisher, much more aggressive, in your face, initiating battles and fights. This is a much more calmer guy who's seen some stuff. And when HUYANG references how unique his hilt is, as far as his lightsaber, that speaks volumes about this guy. And when he's the one who's talking about the path to Peridia, and he'd heard it before in the Young Jedi, in the Academy, like, he has a lot of knowledge in his body, and the way he's navigating all of this, he's not unsettled by anything, and he's not afraid when Morgan Elsbeth questions him about his fear of Ahsoka. He's not ashamed of it. He doesn't bow his head in fear of Morgan Elsbeth. He just flat out says it's a shame that we might have to kill her because there are so few Jedi left. So he's a guy with much more perspective than you might think, which is such an interesting portrayal. But yes, let's get into my thoughts. I love the first 2 episodes. I already talked about it in a non-spoiler way. I did a reaction and review to the first episode that's up on the channel now. Watched it last night or the other day and recorded my reaction to it. And I really enjoyed this episode. I didn't think it was slow. I see people I see people complaining it's a little slow or taking its time. I don't care. Let me savor them. Let me have some time with these live action interpretations of these animated characters. And I enjoyed it. My only quibbles are with the performance of Diana Lee Inosanto and some of the lightsaber fights, which felt a little choreographed rather than fluid. And those are really my biggest concerns. But overall, the story works really well. The action sequences I buy completely. The stuff on Corellia, picking up the threads of Mandalorian season 3 and stuff we've seen of the New Republic having trouble transitioning, using former Empire people. I love that we had that element in this, but also the relationship, Sabine and Ahsoka, what they go through, how they navigate their relationship. 2 hard-headed alpha females figuring out a way to kind of come together, thanks to HERA Syndulla, the general there, who is always the voice of reason on Rebels, figuring this all out, along with Huyang, who should absolutely release a how to fix your life book immediately. That should just be every page should just be 1 sentence about what to do with your life. Pretty incredible stuff overall here. But the specter of Thrawn hanging over all of this, and Ezra, who we may have already seen already. So we will see as we talk about it here. But let's get into the first episode here, Master and Apprentice. And as I said, I'm going to break this thing down into 2 separate storylines. So let's deal with the Ahsoka, Sabine, HERA Syndulla, and Huyang storyline. Ahsoka clearly believes, we see this opening crawl. It's the first Star Wars series that has an opening crawl here in red, right, against this black sky, which I thought was black sky of space, which I thought was really cool here. But Ahsoka clearly believes Thrawn is a danger since The Mandalorian season 2. She goes to a temple here that has, to me, shades of the Mortis arc in Clone Wars, retrieves an orb, fights off 5 droids in an awesome samurai Western fight sequence. We find out Huyang is her companion, who we know from the Clone Wars, I think has been around 250,000 or 25,000 years. It's been around a long time. Let's just leave it at that.
Been around a long time. He dates back to pre-High Republic, given his timeline.
I mean, he crafted Yoda's and Mace Windu's lightsabers, so he's been around a while. But anyway, we're introduced to a live-action HERA Syndulla, Mary Elizabeth Winstead there, who calls into her to tell her about the incident that we're going to get to a little bit later with BAYLAN and SHIN HAIT. And then we see them in hologram form. Ahsoka doesn't recognize them, but she tells Huyang to run their lightsabers. They discuss what's happening. Ahsoka reveals the orb to HERA Syndulla, and that it may be a way to stop Thrawn, who HERA thinks Thrawn died at the Battle of Lothal, and get Ezra back, which unsettles HERA a little bit. And she says only one person can help her unlock the map. It's Sabine. So we go to Lothal. Sabine gets a badass intro, skips a ceremony honoring the Star Wars rebels led by Governor Azadi, who is Clancy Brown reprising his role as he voiced Governor Azadi there in Star Wars Rebels. Watches a holographic image, Sabine does, back at her place from Ezra, dreams about him, wakes up as Ahsoka shows up. They have an awkward reunion there as that hints at their master and apprentice relationship. Huyang reveals that BAYLAN SKOLL is the owner of one of the lightsabers. They used to be master and apprentice here with Sabine and Ahsoka. So Ahsoka asks Sabine to decipher the map. She says she has to do it on her own time. Ahsoka says, no, you got to keep it here. Then when she goes to the other room, Sabine steals the map, takes it home, eventually unlocks it, but she's attacked by SHIN HAIT, who had been waiting for her to unlock it, and some droids. She fights the droids off, lights up her lightsaber that she got from Ezra in Star Wars Rebels, remember, and she tries to fight SHIN HAIT off, but is eventually stabbed before Ahsoka can save her. And that's how episode 1 ends. So, Michael, a lot of action here, but also a lot of letting you know where the relationships stand as we start this series, leading to what we'll get in episode 2. What do you think of these storylines and how we were introduced to both HERA Syndulla live action and Sabine live action? Because we've already seen Ahsoka live action. Oh, and Huyang live action.
Yep. I thought they did a really good job. I mean, look, they walked this really interesting balancing act with these episodes, which is, for all intents and purposes, it's Rebels season 5.
Yes,
but I think they're very careful in the way that they dole out information and what they don't dole out. Like, we don't have HERA mentioning Kanan. We don't mention
right.
Hera's son, who is Kanan's son as well.
Right,
we don't mention Zeb. Like we're not loading down information for the new viewer of characters that we may or may not see who are not important right now. Like the important information is there for you. Like HERA SYNDULLA and AHSOKA have a previous relationship. They both know Sabine. They mentioned the Ezra is gone with Thrawn. Then we cut to Lothal and we get more information about Ezra being the hero of Lothal. So like, I think that it's still going to be a little bit confusing if you've never watched any of the shows, but I think that they're very careful in the way that they do it. Yeah. Getting into the specifics, like, so I think when we watched the trailers, I think we all thought that where Ahsoka shows up at the beginning, the ancient temple that she's at had elements of the Mortis arc. Yeah. It's very funny. Like once we see what it is and learn more about it, you look at those all of the pictures on the wall and you're like, oh, that's not the Mortis arc at all. Those are Night Sisters. They're obviously Night Sisters. It's 3 Night Sisters. It's not the mother. It's not the father and the daughter and the brother. It's Night Sisters. You're like, okay, cool. But like really great sequence, really cool. Shades of the Fifth Element. She finds that map. Shades of Treasure Planet. Like I was having some serious Treasure Planet vibes with that map. And then you get this really fun sequence that leads into her getting rescued by Huyang, and that's a really great sequence as well because her whole interaction with Huyang, the whole "you should have been there, stay closer," and he's like, "That's not my job. That's the job of a Padawan."
Yeah,
and that's not the way that the Jedi Order does things. Hey, there is no Jedi Order anymore. I'm not a Jedi. I don't have a Padawan. Like, there's some very important, just basic information about where Ahsoka is in all of this that I think is really, really important. Then she goes and meets up with Hera. Seeing HERA SYNDULLA, and like I think that for whatever reason, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I think is doing a great job, is still the hardest for me to accept. And I think has less to do with anything Mary Elizabeth Winstead is doing, because I think she's doing great, and more with just my pure love of Vanessa Marshall and the animated Hera. Like I think she so looms large in my mind, but I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead does a great job. I love the fact that Hera is sort of this maternal character trying to bring these two people that she loves together. I think it's a great dynamic for the 3 of them. For Star Wars nerds, they're in the same room that Luke and everybody are in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, right.
Like they go to look at that hologram of BAYLAN and SHIN HAIT, and like you're like, I've seen that room. That is where Mon Mothma said that many Bothans died, and then everybody said they're going to go to Endor. So just like the little things that Filoni does because he's such a Star Wars nerd, like all of us, it's just like that didn't have to take place in that room, but the fact that it did just completely, all by itself, nerded me out. Again, I think they did just a really nice job of this. I have this map. And like the whole idea that there is one final Grand Inquisitor left harkens back to the very original appearance of Thrawn in the Heir of the Empire books. Like that was the big thing. Like there's no more not Grand Inquisitors, I'm sorry, Grand Admirals. That there's no, like, all the Empire, the leadership of the Empire is gone. Like there's no Grand Admirals anymore, there's no Moffs, there's no anybody. But the fact that Thrawn could come back, and then Hera kind of getting that information out there right away, like Thrawn's dead, Battle of Lothal, and Ahsoka's like, I mean, space whales took him away. We don't know if he's dead. And then just this promise that we could also find Ezra. That like we get that, and then as soon as we get that, like I said, we go right to seeing Clancy Brown reprising his role, and we get the information that Ezra was the champion of Lothal, the general that Bridger saved the day. So we get that little bit, and then you get this great introduction of Sabine listening to rock music, like speeder biking down those like long roads to nowhere that Lothal has, and just a really fun thing. And I mean, I kind of love the fact that, she didn't want to be at this big ceremony because for her, it's not a big celebration. Like it's the day that Ezra disappeared. Right. And that like is something that really she's holding really deeply. And then the reunion with her and Ahsoka, I thought was just really awesome. I mean, this is, like I said, this is where the Rebels fans and the non-Rebels fans are all catching up together. So all of this information that, like, at a certain point, Ahsoka showed up and was like, hey, Sabine, you're Force sensitive. I'm going to train you. And then it went to shit. And I think, like, there's a lot of things to mine there. I mean, I think that, you know, even when Ahsoka is talking to Hera and Anakin comes up and she gives the information again that if you didn't watch Clone Wars, you need to know, which is she walked away from Anakin. She was Anakin's Padawan, and she walked away from him and the Jedi Order. And kind of as we said last week in our review of everything you need to know about Ahsoka, I think she feels guilty. I think she knows, and she's not wrong, that had she not walked away, Anakin probably doesn't go Darth Vader.
Well, she says just because sometimes you do things for the right reasons, it doesn't mean there aren't consequences. So it's a really interesting line.
100% that. Like, she is dealing with this fact that as a Padawan, she walked away from her master, and her master became Space Hitler. And then she became a master to a new Padawan who is just as bullheaded as she was when she showed up in that Clone Wars movie, and for some reason walked away from that. And so she's got a lot of things going on there. And Sabine has a lot. Like, we don't know the details of why she walked away. Was Sabine not powerful enough and she was afraid she was going to go down the dark side? Like, there's a lot more information to this, but I think it's really rich territory. And I think both of them are doing amazing work together. Then Sabine goes and solves the clue of the map in the simplest way possible, which should have been obvious to anybody who's ever had a Rubik's Cube, but I'll take it. And hangs out with her super awesome animatronic Loth-cat that I want to own. I will now go to Galaxy's Edge and buy a Loth-cat because I'm obsessed with that thing. Has the whole battle. One thing, and this is like my big quibble. This is my new favorite. Star Wars, stop doing this.
Okay.
Do not impale people with lightsabers and have that be a thing that's fine. Stop it. Like, I'll say a lot of bad things about Force Awakens, but in Force Awakens, Finn just gets fucking slammed in his side by a lightsaber. We don't see him get impaled, and we accept the fact that he's in a med bay until Last Jedi. Like, if the goal was we need to see Sabine super fucked up and have her out of commission for the first half of the second episode, great. Have Shin Hati kick the shit out of her. Have her slice the lightsaber and just like we see the burn mark or whatever. Stop impaling people. It didn't work for Qui-Gon. It shouldn't work for anybody else. Like, don't impale people with lightsabers. It's just, let's stop doing it. It's dumb. I hate it.
Fair enough. All right. That's your final word. Okay.
That's my final word.
Shannon, your thoughts on the Ahsoka, Sabine, HERA SYNDULLA, HUYANG, and a little bit of the Shin Hati stuff that happens here in this storyline.
Love the intro to Ahsoka. One, I love the crawl. I was just like, that's the way that Kevin Kiner's score just sets up this feeling of dread, this impending doom that is coming. I think everyone, even though John Williams is not the only one who has scored a Star Wars movie now. Like, you know, we've had Michael, Giacchino, and I forget who did Solo, but basically I think as fans we could all probably unilaterally agree.
I think Giacchino. I think he did both.
Did he do Solo as well?
I think he did.
Okay. Well, I think at this point, Kevin Kiner needs to be the successor because anything with Star Wars, like his music.
John Powell did the score for Solo. Go ahead.
John Powell. Yeah. But it needs to be Kevin Kiner. I mean, his scores are just so wonderful. You hear him looping the Ahsoka theme in from time to time. Like, it's just so atmospheric. It's just so well done. Little things like Ahsoka throwing her lightsabers into the ground, and rather than using her hand, she uses the Force because she can probably generate more force with the Force than she can physically. I love little touches like that. Again, Kevin Kiner's score as she's unlocking the puzzle. This is a very boring sequence without that music. And potentially, if it's not the right music, it is a sequence of okay, let's go. But Kevin Kiner's score just makes that sequence come alive. The action with her taking on those 4 droids, what a brilliant way, dropping into the hole, recreating another hole, or creating another hole. It's like this. Oh man, this is so well done right now. The interplay between her and Huyang. You wonder how destructive the self-destruct sequence on those droids are, that they took out a huge swath of land. But the interplay, as to what Vogel said, the interplay between her and Huyang, setting up the fact that Ahsoka can't do this alone. She needs a Padawan. All super great. I love the fact that Clancy Brown reprised his role from the animated series. Wish that even though Jai Kell did a great job, I wish it had been Dante Bosco because he played that character in animation as well. The introduction of Hera, I am with Vogel here. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is a tremendous actor. I think she's too young for this role. I think you need someone about 10 years old, because she just doesn't feel maternal the way Hera has always felt maternal. She feels like a sister versus a mom. And even though, again, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is doing a great job, I think she's the only one that thus far is like, not totally on board with her version of Hera. Love the intro of Sabine. I think, is this the first time that we've gotten rock music in a galaxy far, far away?
No.
Okay.
The Jabba's Palace.
No, that's right.
That's not rock music. That's lounge music.
It's literally called Jedi Rocks. That horrible song in the special edition is called
that. Well, then they're using it incorrectly because that is a lounge act.
Even beyond that, I mean, we've gotten probably not that level of. I think there's one other. I think in like Jedi Survivor, you do have like a droid DJ playing rock music. But yes, it is rare, and it definitely stood out, but not in a bad way. So yes, it is. Rare.
No, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And loved, like, again, you're just, for those folks that are not as familiar with the character of Sabine, if you didn't watch Rebels, having this sort of Kirk leap before you look attitude of throwing her speeder bike into landing mode, scraping under a fighter, like that's all just a great way to introduce a character. Yes, my wife's new favorite thing in Star Wars are the Loth-cats. She is a huge cat person. But then just the little things like, catching sight of that Mandalorian helmet before she takes out the holographic message of Ezra. Yeah, these are all just really, really great introduction to characters that if you are not familiar with the animated series, these are just great intros, a great way to get to know these people. The moment between Sabine and Ahsoka, like when it's clear, it's like this is like hooking up with your friend who you had a fight with and you haven't seen in 5 years. It's sort of like that awkward, like, I like you, but we left things in a weird place, and I'm not sure what to do right now. That was all a lot of fun. Her kind of solving the puzzle, is a little easy, but that's fine. I mean, these are the early levels of the game when the puzzles aren't as hard. The fight with the droids, I thought, this is fun. I do think the lightsaber battle, it's early. I mean, it's not a wide shot. I think a lot of times when we watch lightsaber battles, we do like to watch those wide shots. We like to watch the performers or the stunt performers really kind of showing off this choreography. But it was still a lot of fun. Do agree with Vogel. Like, even though she impaled her off to the side, it's like, we saw someone have this done earlier and they were very dead. So, and also as the ship is coming up after Huyang and Ahsoka, get the distress call. The fact that Shin lets her live, it's like, no, I mean, Huyang needs to start firing the blasters. Like she needs to have no other choice but to run. Like she can't finish the job. So I do agree with Vogel there. Despite everything leading up to it, I did enjoy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, real quick, I'll just say this. I like this version of Ahsoka. I know I've seen some people who don't like that she's no fun zone or whatever, but I mean, all the stuff she's been through. She's an older Ahsoka now. She's much more confident in who she is. And there are plenty of young, arrogant kids who grow up to be much more calmer people because they've been through the wars of their arrogance or their precociousness, and they've come out the other side and learned the lessons, and they're much more circumspect about what's going on. So I like this version of Ahsoka. It's not someone you're going to warm to immediately. She's very clear. She's very confident. When she's fighting those droids, before she starts, the little smirk crawls across her face because she enjoys this, and she knows she's going to get the best of those droids. And I love that. It was very samurai Western-esque kind of opening sequence for her, which I thought was badass. Her and Huyang, great chemistry there. Never thought to pair those two for a long period of time together. Nice. I can't imagine what the conversations are like. I can't imagine they're long conversations between the two of them. I think there's a lot of quiet on that ship when they're hanging out doing the things that they're doing. I imagine. And I agree with you guys on Mary Elizabeth. I do think Mary Elizabeth Winstead gets better as they give her more time in the second episode, which we'll get to. I think her HERA SYNDULLA comes around. But Shannon, you make an excellent point. An older actress, maybe Vanessa Marshall, would have been a nice choice to come in here and play the role and give a little more of a mature point of view on all of this. I imagine they wanted them to be relatively around the same age as you're watching it for their own reasons. But yeah, an older actress, just slightly older, I think would have had a different energy here to lay the groundwork for HERA SYNDULLA. Because at times it seems like HERA is put off or caught unawares by Ahsoka. And HERA always seemed to be on top of the ball no matter what was going on. Because remember, she's been fighting this battle for many, many years against the Empire and occupying forces. So it's a much more stronger approach to the world for sure. Great introduction of Sabine. And I see all these people going, oh, she's standing out. I said, yes, of course, because she's new. You've got to spend more time introducing her. We've already seen Ahsoka in The Mandalorian, in the Book of Boba Fett. We don't need to spend a lot of time introducing her. It's a Sabine that we need to spend a lot of time on. And of course, she's the standout because they give her all these badass, rebellious things to do. So it's a really cool introduction to her. And Natasha Liu Bordizzo, I think, does a really good job translating Sabine Wren into live action. Even though I love Tia Sakar's performance, I think Natasha's doing a nice job with this as well. I don't mind that she solved the map. We're laying the groundwork that she's a smart, really smart person. These things come to her naturally. And I always felt she should have been the chosen one and not Ezra by the end of Rebels anyway. So for me, I didn't mind that shit at the end there. But the fight, I agree. The lightsaber stuff, Mike, you make an excellent point. Didn't think about it till you said it. You're so right. Having her get her ass kicked, having her get a little scar, and then Ahsoka's ship showing up and SHIN HAIT taking off, I think that worked a little bit better. But I guess they wanted a big moment for you to be shocked by it. And I was certainly shocked by it, but yeah.
Stop.
Huh? Yeah. But
Stop doing it.
Stop doing it. All right. Well, let's take a quick break as we took 30 minutes on that discussion. And we'll be back to talk about the other storyline in the first episode here right after this. That might be my favorite one of all the cues of Star Wars. All right, let's move on to this storyline. Morgan Elsbeth, Baylan, and SHIN HAIT. BAYLAN SKOLL and SHIN HAIT are introduced arriving on a New Republic ship with an old Jedi password. They board and they're questioned by Captain Hale and accused of being imposters here. And this causes them to whip out their lightsabers and kill everyone, including Captain Hale, and free Morgan Elsbeth. As Baylan is mowing down the Republican guards here, the New Republic guards rather, is so reminiscent of Rogue One and Vader in that hallway. So we got ourselves a hallway scene there. Morgan, after she's released, tells Baylan that Ahsoka is in search of that star map. And then later in the ruins there of where Ahsoka had been to get the map, Morgan reveals that she is a Night Sister and plans to bring Thrawn back. And for those who don't know who the Night Sisters are, they're known as the Witches of Dathomir, a clan of force-wielding Dathomirian women who practice dark magic and were first introduced in the Clone Wars. They were thought to have been massacred, but clearly some have survived, including Merrin, who was in the video game Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Anyway, Morgan sends Shin to Lothal to get Sabine Wren. Shin initially hesitates on this, thinks it might be witchcraft, but Baylan tells her that Sabine was Ahsoka's former apprentice, so it makes sense that she goes there. Then we see Shin on Lothal later. She has a mini probe droid watching Sabine. She waits till Sabine solves the map, then confronts her with her droids, takes the map, battles her, and as we said, stabs her through and leaves her there when she sees Ahsoka coming. So Shannon, what did you think of the introduction of Baylan and SHIN HAIT, the return of Morgan Elsbeth here, Diana Lee Inosanto, and the reveal that she is a Night Sister here and her plans to bring Thrawn back?
Absolutely love this opening. It was just so Star Wars. Yeah. And Mark Ralston, who plays Captain Hale, that's Boggs from Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
He is the type of actor that I think
also Aliens. He's in Aliens. Remember him in Aliens? Yeah.
This is the type of actor they need to employ way more of, because this is someone that we kind of know. You might recognize them. And also he's just a really, really good performer. I love there's a cocksuredness as he's sitting in the captain's chair like a Jedi. I'm calling their bluff. Like there is this sort of swagger to some folks in the New Republic of, hey, yeah, we got it under control. And watching the interaction between him and Ray Stevenson, and also Shin Hati, IVANNA SAKHNO, who also doing just great work. I had not noticed in the trailers that she had the Padawan braid, but seeing that for the first time, I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. And just looking at their different points of view of how they fight, that he's the old master. He has nothing to prove. He lets her just go to town. And it's only when it looks like that Captain Hale might get his blaster out in time that he stops him. Watching like Clone Wars Jedi, prequel movies Jedi, there is a smoothness to the way they fight. It's almost like ballet. Watching Baylan and Shin, it's like modern dance. It is these stark, deliberate maneuvers that is so different than what we've seen before. Like Vader had a little bit of that, but I feel like, and mainly in Rogue One, but I feel like this is the first time we've really seen this bang, bang, bang. It's just so eye-catching. And watching that Diane Lee Inosanto, Morgan, knowing that she knows this guy, and we know that we find out he's been around. He disappeared around the Clone Wars. They're just really, really unique characters, and they're going to be really exciting characters to get to know. And you see, like Shin Hati, are they going to turn good by the end? Very possibly. Very, very possibly, because you can tell when they're where the temple was that she does not trust Lady Morgan. She's just like, everything she's looking at Baylan like, are we sure? Are we sure we should do this? And I think BAYLAN SKOLL is going to be an incredibly interesting character because, and we'll get to it in episode 2, but the reticence that he has at the idea of having to kill a Jedi. That like, that's not really what I wanted. That's not what I wanted to do. But you can see now, like he's kind of in it for the money. Shin Hati
and the power.
Sure, and the power. Yep, you're right. But yeah, these two I'm very, very excited to see more of. We didn't find out in Mandalorian that Lady Morgan was a descendant of the witches, right?
No,
this is new information.
We all thought it going into this, and it was confirmed, but yeah, we did not know that until now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think she's doing a good job. But the ones in these sections who are the standouts, it's Ray Stevenson and IVANNA SAKHNO.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think Diana Lee's doing a little, I'm going to be evil now. Anyway, all right, Michael, your thoughts overall on the introduction of BAYLAN SKOLL, Shin Hati here, Ray Stevenson, IVANNA SAKHNO, and their alliance here with Morgan Elsbeth, which she's clearly paying for in some way.
Yeah, look, I mean, Shannon's absolutely right. Like, one of the hallmarks of a good Star Wars story is it has an opening scene that just throws you right into it. And this just feels like it's right up there with the best of them. Yeah. It just establishes everything right away. And this whole dynamic, like the BAYLAN SKOLL and Shin Hati being a Jedi Master and his apprentice who are not full Jedi anymore is way more interesting than two Sith. Yeah. Like, I mean, I love Sith, but had they been more on the Sith side of things, they would have come in, they would have been super evil. They would have been evil and all over the place. They would have been badass. But like this whole dynamic of this guy who kind of has, to Shannon's point, this calmness about him, this sort of stature about him, like he's killing people, but he's just kind of, that's just the job. He's not taking glee in it. Like, and even the dynamic between him and Shin Hati, like to Shannon's point, the way that she kind of constantly looks to him, Master, is this okay? Master, is this? It's really interesting to see what we are very familiar with in the traditional Jedi Master Padawan relationship that we've seen played out in the movies, in the animated series, in the comics, in the publishing, but to see it with two people that are just straight up bad killers. Like it's a new dynamic, and it makes them really interesting. And to Shannon's point, it makes you question where they're going to go. Like, he seeks power. he doesn't really want to kill people if he doesn't have to. Like, they just seem like they're riding this line. And I think the more that we learn about them, the more it's going to be really, really interesting. You know, Star Wars loves a hallway scene. Star Wars loves a hallway scene, like from Darth Vader's original entrance to Darth Vader in Rogue One to Darth Maul in the Clone Wars finale, and now BAYLAN SKOLL just like scooting on down that hallway like a fucking brick wall. Like, Star Wars loves a hallway scene, and Filoni knows it, and they do it real, real well. Another fun little nod, like with Morgan Elsbeth, I thought, you know, like when he like sort of just used the Force to unlock her handcuffs, straight up has to be a nod to Return of the Jedi when the Emperor does the same thing to Luke. Like, it just had the exact same vibe to it. And there's all these little nods throughout like that, where just like Filoni, who knows Star Wars backwards and forwards as much as anybody, he's doing these things that are, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Like, it's not necessary that you know it. It's not like a giant crazy Easter egg, but it's these little nods to people doing things the same way that we've seen them do it before. That's really, really nice. And then, yeah, like getting to the planet, finding out that Morgan Elsbeth is officially a Night Sister. Interesting stuff. Like, to John's point, the Night Sisters are cool. I mean, and then also the Night Sisters were one of those things that opened up this idea that we don't live in a world where you're either a Jedi or one of two Sith. There are lots of people that wield the Force in different ways, the Night Sisters being one of them. And so, like, the fact that that's where Morgan Elsbeth's sort of origin comes from makes her really interesting. The fact that Shin Hati doesn't trust her makes the three of them really interesting. And then another fun Star Wars nod at the end, like with Shin Hati standing on Lothal, where that droid comes up to give her the info, is almost framed exactly like Darth Maul in Phantom Menace. Like, it's just, so again, there's just these things that harken back in visual ways, in little moments, that make this feel Star Wars, that isn't like slavish to it. Like, even with the opening crawl, like, this is, like you said, this is the first time we've got an opening crawl, but it's a very different opening crawl. So the way that they're taking the stuff that we know from Star Wars but reinterpreting it a little bit is really, really fun and interesting to me.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I love this. Like I said, Ray Stevenson, IVANNA, SAKHNO, I like their chemistry. I like their connection. She comes across to me as a child that he found alone, whose parents and village had been killed, and he essentially took her on as a Padawan to be an apprentice to him. And her fear of all the stuff that the Morgan is doing. I mean, remember, she's the one that goes, "You're a witch." You know, these things. She has a fear of this stuff. And I think there's going to be a moment where she turns on BAYLAN or turns on Morgan. One of the two, I think, in the long run, because of the way IVANNA SAKHNO is playing her in the little moments when she's not even speaking. When you watch her in the background reacting to things, Shin Hati is having this whole separate life that's going on that you can watch if you want to rewatch the episodes and just watch her reacting to everything that's happening. She's laying the groundwork for what's going to come in her decision-making down the road, I think, overall. So we'll see. But yeah, but I like the fact that, like Michael, you said, and this is typical Filoni, I'm going to bring stuff from all the way back to the beginning of stuff to give you more perspective. This isn't the standard Jedi Sith situation. There's much more going on here with the Force. It's going to be interesting to see. Well, let's move on to episode 2, Toil and Trouble here. So let's go to the Sabine storyline first. Sabine is alive and recovering in the cleanest, whitest hospital room I've ever seen. Yes, surprise. She's alive. She tells Ahsoka that Shin Hati took the map and that she unlocked it. Ahsoka is not happy, but she's still worried for Sabine's health. While Ahsoka heads to Sabine's place, walks through the fight. I said it's like Prince Humperdinck in The Princess Bride walking through that. She is attacked by a remaining droid who she was hoping would be there, cuts its head off, brings the head to Sabine, who unlocks the memory banks of the droid in a pretty awesome kind of Mission Impossible type of thing where it was going to blow up and stuff. And we find out that the droid came from Corellia, where Morgan Elsbeth once stored her shit and where we met Han Solo and Kira in Solo's Star Wars story. Ahsoka heads off and stops Sabine from coming along with her by saying, "You've done enough." And Hera tells Sabine she did a great job. She stays behind to tell Sabine she did a great job laying the seeds of her working with Ahsoka again when she heals. And as Sabine as Hera and Ahsoka head to Corellia, God damn it. Sorry, guys. Hera tries to convince Ahsoka to take on Sabine again. And Huyang works on Sabine some more and drops some hammer words of wisdom. On Corellia, we are met with bureaucratic bullshit from former Imperials. Ahsoka and Hera figure it out, kill some Imperial sympathizers. Ahsoka fights off Merrin and a droid, while Hera with Chopper tries to shoot down a ship carrying a hyperdrive for Morgan Elsbeth, but end up just putting a tracker on it with some funny stuff with Chopper. They escape thanks to SHIN HAIT, and the remaining Imperial sympathizers are arrested. Back on Lothal, Sabine decides to join the fight, cuts her hair in a very Japanese samurai-feeling ceremony, complete with an altar and a knife, visits the mural, and then her and Ahsoka reunite on her ship, and she accepts her as her Padawan again. So, Michael, a lot here with Sabine, Ahsoka, Hera, some Imperial stuff, and HUYANG, but eventually leading to leading to Sabine and Ahsoka coming back together and as Padawan and Jedi Master. I'm going to take myself down and fix my camera. I'll be right back.
Well, while John is gone, so yeah, I think for those of you that are just listening to this and not watching it, just the joy of John giving us an entire rundown in just pitch black because his camera walked out. Like, it's like John Rocha sitting in a dark cave telling us a story. It's oddly comforting. So yeah, look, I think this is where I think we get into the meat of the Ahsoka Sabine relationship in these two episodes, which I think is really, really nice. Like, you see Ahsoka being upset that Sabine took the map away, that the map got stolen because of her. Like, there's just a lot of, I think what they do really nice with Ahsoka and Sabine is there's a lot of really interesting things that are not being said. Like, the dialogue they say to each other is one thing, but you can feel the tension simmering beneath them with all of the stuff that we don't fully know about yet, which I personally really enjoyed. John is not wrong that Ahsoka had a little bit of a Prince Humperdinck thing going on, but I think what's cool is she also had a little bit of a Cal Kestis thing going on. Like, both at the temple in the first episode and particularly here, she's really sort of doing this Force echo thing that if you've played Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order, you are definitely familiar with, because Cal gets a lot of information doing the exact same thing. So I thought that was really, really, really nice. I think what they did with the entire head sequence in the hospital was fun, because you got to get this information out. You've got to track the droid. You could have just had Sabine go, okay, I got the thing, but adding that level of tension to it, adding that this thing could explode, having Sabine and Ahsoka be super calm about it, having HUYANG freak out, and having him get mad at Hera because she's like, I think you should go for it. And him be like, you're a hologram. Like, all of it was just like, they took something that could have just been a very perfunctory scene and ended up having a lot of fun with it and giving you a lot of fun character interplay. So I thought I really appreciated that. And then, yeah, Corellia, gotta love Corellia. Like John said, home of Han Solo, home of Qi'ra, origin place of the Millennium Falcon, important place in Star Wars, and now where they're taking apart all of the Imperial Star Cruisers. And I think getting there, they did a lot of things that Mandalorian did, and I think they did them a little bit better. All of this idea of employing former Imperial workers, and the guy who was the manager saying, look, these guys have no loyalty. They just want a paycheck. It is what it is. Like, you know, everyone in the galaxy doesn't care the way that you guys care. Like, there was a lot of interesting stuff kind of being established there, while Hera is having this really nice, kind of the most Hera conversation that she had, I think, in the two episodes with Ahsoka, where she's kind of like, look, I think you should make her your Padawan again. I think that's important. And then I just really I love like weird political Star Wars shit. And so, like, when they go up into that control room and they're just being stonewalled, and Hera's like, that's a really big hyperdrive. We're not building anything that big. And he's like, well, it's classified. And she's like, I'm a general. Like, just them continually trying to sort of avoid telling them stuff. And then that guy being like, for the Empire. Like, it, again, Filoni did this with Clone Wars. They're doing it with Mandalorian. They're doing it here. They're going a long way towards making sense of what J.J. Abrams did in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're going a long way to being like, guys, we know that Force Awakens doesn't make a ton of sense, but I'll be damned if we're not going to make it work for you. And they probably will. They probably will, because all of this idea of, yes, we beat the Empire, but there were people out there that liked the Empire.
Yeah.
There were people out there that were cool with what was going on or didn't care or were making money off of things. And they'd be super fine for the Empire to come back. And by the way, the New Republic's not killing it. So I think there's all of these elements in all of this. But then we go into this awesome, great action sequence. We get Ahsoka fighting, is it Marrok, the mysterious
Marrok.
Inquisitor?
Yeah,
Marrok, sorry. Marrok, the mysterious Inquisitor with his helicopter lightsaber. Like just kind of an awesome fight there. Ahsoka being badass. And then Chop, my boy Chopper shows up in full realized live action, Hera and Chopper chasing down that ship, and Chopper not being able to find the homing beacon and getting mad and asking Hera if she went through his stuff. I know some people find Chopper annoying. I fucking love Chopper. I think Chopper, aside from my boy R2, Chopper might be one of my favorite droids because he is a sassy little bitch and I love everything about him. And like, this was the moment out of everything where I was like, this is Rebels.
Yeah. Oh,
like
100%.
Ahsoka on the ground fighting an Inquisitor, Hera and Chopper flying through the air as Hera does all of these high flying acts, and then Chopper like hurls the beacon on the ship right before it goes into hyperdrive. Like, this was just awesome Star Wars. Like, this was like, I love it. Like, this was where, and I will say, you know, I said that this show kind of lives in the shadow of Andor. This is what this show, I think, does better than Andor. I think Andor made Star Wars real in a way that no other thing has, in a way that it was grounded and it was like it was real and it was heavy and it was dark, but like they didn't have fun like this sequence had fun. And I think that's where this show sort of shines. And then I don't remember because you were in the dark cave. Did we get to the end of the episode with Ahsoka and Sabine, or are we saving that?
Yes, with the cutting of the hair and everything.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Couldn't remember because you were so dark.
You know what? We like to move on. But yes, go ahead.
This whole ending, I mean, you know, this whole ending of sort of Sabine kind of stepping up, cutting her hair, putting on her Mandalorian armor, which by the way, her shoulder piece, what is it called?
Pauldron.
Her pauldron, thank you. Which has throughout Rebels had many different symbols on it. Now has a Purgil on it, the space whales, which I think was really, really interesting. But seeing her sort of get ready and then let Ahsoka know that she was ready. And then Ahsoka realizing that it was time to do this, and then going really smoothly into almost a shot-for-shot recreation of the final shot of season 4 of Rebels. Kind of letting us know that that moment at the end of Rebels that we saw is actually this moment, that this is the moment that all of the stuff about them being Padawan and Master and everything kind of happened in between, and that now we are caught up to what we saw at the end of Rebels, I thought was really, really nice.
Yeah, fair point. Shannon, your thoughts here on the Ahsoka, Sabine, HERA SYNDULLA, HUYANG, and the fight on Corellia, the storylines here.
Again, super enjoyed everything. Having not played a lot of Jedi Survivor, the whole concept of a Force Echo is something that was new to me. So as she's going through doing her Prince Humperdinck, just hearing like those sounds of the fight, I was like, oh, that's a lot of fun. I don't know why an assassin droid would hang out there. I would have thought that he would have looked over and been like, oh, okay, my guy's got away. Maybe I should go join him. But that's what you have. I mean, it was still a lot of fun. And as Ahsoka, the first time I watched it, I'm watching Ahsoka watch Ezra, not really totally paying attention to the leg that's coming down out of the top of the frame. So the second one, I really saw it and appreciated it because that was a fun sequence. The whole dismantling of the bomb or like trying to get the information out of the droid's head, as you can, there's literally a meter saying, hey, I'm about to explode. It was a really, really fun sequence. And again, HUYANG is that line with Hera of the, you're not worried because you're a hologram. I was like, that was really, really funny. Them getting to Corellia. Corellia is just a cool location. It's the shipyards of the galaxy. And using the actor that was showing them around, that's Peter Jacobson. Who is a big TV actor. He's another guy like Mark Ralston that it's like, use people like him because we know we recognize them, but we're not so we're not so stuck on them as a celebrity or a big A-list actor. Like use people like him because they really kind of they keep you in the story.
There's an authenticity to their performances. Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely. Yeah. But as they're asking him, like, hey, so you basically like, who are you loyal to? He's like, I'm a businessman. I'm loyal to my investors, which his investors in this case are the Empire.
Yeah.
The whole sequence in the control center, that was awesome because you can feel sort of this ambient tension building. You know something is about to happen. We know homeboy off to the left, like he's a bad guy. Like the way he's kind of looking over when the one gal says, "Oh, I can't tell him to come back. They've already been cleared." And just the shootout that happens and watching and again, this was in the trailer, but it's still just such a freaking cool move. Watching Ahsoka use both of her lightsabers to smash the windshield as she hits the ground and runs after a ship. Like that stuff, that's just so much fun. Watching her take on Marrok and the droid, and you can see Marrok is kind of holding his own. And it's like, is he Ezra? Is he a
that's the popular theory?
Is he a knight of Ren? I don't think you introduce a masked bad guy without taking that mask off at some points.
Unless you're the Knights of Ren.
You mean like Boba Fett?
Yo.
That's earlier.
30 years. Took him 30 years to take that mask off.
Did they take it off?
Okay. Keep going.
And Marrok means knighted wolf. So it's an interesting...
I know. I read that. That's sort of like Ezra with the Loth wolves. Like, it could be. I mean, I think
who knows?
If that were the case, I'm not saying it is. If that were the case, it kind of would be a shame that everybody called it out this soon, which makes me think that they wouldn't do that. Maybe. But the entire sequence again was a blast. Like having that battle on two fronts. The HERA chopper dialogue as they're chasing that ship, so much fun. I really wanted that shot of HERA taking off and all of the crap and Chopper's little pod goes flying. I think that was an opportunity for comedy that they didn't get to use. And also the fact that like he's their like launcher tracker and he throws it versus
and don't miss this time.
Yeah. But the whole sequence was just a blast. A lot of fun. And going back, like the Huyang Sabine scene where she's like, you know, Ahsoka, it's not my choice. Ahsoka stopped training me. Is like, that's an excuse and a poor one. David Tennant is doing a great job voicing this droid. And again, I think as you said, John, kind of dropping some truth bombs on Sabine. And then, you know, watching her take out her Mandalorian armor, watching her ceremonially cut the hair. That was all a blast. I mean, again, despite having some quibbles and wishing that they would maybe pick up the pace in a couple of places, I am super enjoying this show.
Yeah. I mean, I loved what we got here. A little more of the interplay between Sabine and Ahsoka, and the idea of like, you know, you've done enough. Her being disappointed that Sabine's how can I say this? Her independent thinking causing the issues here, because that's how Shin Hati got the map. That's how they unlocked the map, which we're going to talk about in the next storyline, that Morgan Elsbeth was able to use it so quickly because of that situation there. So that kind of stuff, you see that interplay. But then HERA coming in and working on them both so they can put their stuff down and come together by the end. I thought that was really nice. I agree with the Huyang situation. I mean, that was immediately, you know, you want a Loth-cat, Mike, I'll go with your Galaxy's Edge. I want to get a Huyang doll that I can go, you know what? I don't know if I can do this. You know, the only one you're disappointing is yourself. And okay, all right, I'll do it. Like, I like his words of wisdom in that scene, because they weren't mean. They were, as he said, logical and saying to Sabine, you know, and Sabine's like, well, did you want to come for me or did you not? Was I really part of the plan, or did HERA talk her into it? And he said, irrelevant. It's what we're doing now. Stop getting hung up on all the reasons. I mean, I know I do. I know maybe a lot of you watching or listening maybe do get caught up on, well, why did they turn to me? Well, why are they doing this? What matters is what's going on. Can you do the job? Can you handle the situation and help? And that's really what he was getting at. And then saying to her, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You weren't that great. You were one of the least capable users of the Force. But the only time you're wasting is your own, because you're not embracing the possibilities in yourself. Right, exactly. Yeah, and I thought that was really great. So
my boy HUYANG.
I know HUYANG should release a self-help book, for God's sakes, as I said earlier. But yeah, we see all of that going on. And the Corellia stuff, this is why Steph Green is one of the best up-and-coming rising filmmakers in Star Wars. Give her so many of the episodes to do. I hope she gets a chance to do a series or a movie down the road, because the way she directs action is fantastic. The way she brings scenes alive before the scenes pop off, I think, are just so well done. The scene in the control tower, she does not waste time. You see, we're establishing what's going on, who is, where everybody is, and what's slowly building to the reveal that they're all working for the Empire. Just really smart stuff. And then the fight with her and Marrok, possibly Ezra there. Interesting battle fight. My friend thinks that Marrok let her off the hook because it is Ezra in disguise, and his obsession with Inquisitors from Rebels is playing itself out in this way. I don't know. We'll get to a situation with Morgan Elsbeth later, but this feels like there's a possibility that it could be true, but who knows? We'll find out, I'm sure, as it goes along. But Michael, yes, you have a rebuttal on this, please.
Well, so it's kind of this is, I will just say this. Now, I could 100% be wrong, and I'm happy to be like, all right, fuck me, I was wrong. Y'all are right. But Star Wars has a tendency to do this thing that whenever there's a mystery character, we just want to place whoever our favorite person is in that mystery. Be like, that's it. But like Ezra's journey, his entire journey of even like having kind of like an affinity for the dark side, pulling back from it, wanting to save Kanan when he was in the world between worlds and understanding that he couldn't do it, and then making this ultimate sacrifice for all of his friends to save them and save. What happened between then and this whole journey that would have all of a sudden made him an Inquisitor? And even aside from all of that, if he can get back and he's been hanging around and he's now an Inquisitor, then why do we need to build a giant special ship and find a map to find Thrawn? Why couldn't Ezra be like, hey guys, I just popped on the 101 and it took me 20 minutes. Just follow me. I know it's like, there's just a bunch of logic to it that, like, aside from like, oh, it's gonna, and like, I get it. Like if Sabine had to face Marrok and then it was like it's really Ezra and we're going for this Luke, I am your father. Like I can see the way that you're like, oh, wouldn't this be cool? But I just feel like it kind of robs Ezra's entire 4-season arc a little bit for a cool kind of reveal. And it just creates some massive logic flaws in why we have to travel and go to all of this stuff to find Thrawn. So I'm on team, this is not Ezra. And if I'm wrong, I'll be happy to say that I was wrong.
Yeah, as long as they do it well. As long as they do it well and explain it. Because you bring up legitimate concerns, Mike, in that way. And who knows what happened when he got flung out into the Outer Rims with Thrawn. What happened, or Outer Rim rather, with Thrawn. What happened to him, what he experienced, what he was exposed to. Who knows? But yeah, we'll see.
Now, wait, just really quickly, now that I'm thinking about it, because now I'm getting annoyed at myself. Arguably, Ezra can like ride Purgils as much as he wants and Thrawn can't. So arguably, yes, Ezra could probably get back to our side of the galaxy easier than Thrawn could if you were going to establish it. That my brain is now all of a sudden doing the opposite of what I want to do. So I'm going to stop now, but we'll see what happens.
5 or 6 years. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We'll jump into the last storyline here in the second episode right after this. I
was going to say, you better do that Ahsoka theme in there. I'm very well done. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go through this real quickly. All right, Morgan, BAYLAN, and SHIN HAIT storyline on Cetos. At an ancient temple, Morgan turns the star map on and charts a path to Thrawn. BAYLAN refers to it as the pathway to Peridia, though Morgan indicates that only some people call it that. BAYLAN goes on to explain that the children at the Jedi Temple were the ones to call it pathway to Peridia, pulling the name from old fairy tales and stories. This has never been mentioned before in Star Wars, but Timothy Zahn first mentioned something called Outbound Flight, which is a failed Jedi exploration mission meant to seek out life beyond the known galaxy. So it may be something connected to that. And the Eye of Sion, which we're going to hear about in just a second, sort of resembles the ring design of Outbound Flight. But anyway, Morgan asserts that Thrawn is calling to her across time and space. She can hear him, and we do see, or what I think is, in the first episode, I think we see Baylan hear the Purgils, I think, or in this episode, I can't remember the scene, but it sounds like he's hearing the Purgils. But anyway, Morgan asserts that Thrawn is calling to her across time and space, which is very similar to what we got with Thrawn and Ezra Bridger in The World Between Worlds. Shin seems certain about what will happen once they locate Thrawn, but Baylan assures her that once he is located, they will receive power like never before. Then aboard the Eye of Sion, Morgan reveals that they are nearly done outfitting the starship with the new hyperdrives that can get them to Thrawn's location. And by the way, the name of Eye of Sion might be a reference to a non-canon Sith Lord, Darth Sion, which is from the video game Knights of the Old Republic 2. But their victory is undercut because Baylan can sense Ahsoka. Shin thought they took care of her. Baylan can sense her and that she is on her way. Shin is, and we can see that Morgan Elsbeth questions Baylan about his feeling about Ahsoka, and she says, "You have questions about yourself on this?" He's like, "No, it's just a shame. There are so few Jedi left." And then they disappear. So, Shannon, your thoughts on the Morgan, Baylan, and Shin Hati storyline here?
Not a ton here.
Yeah.
But again, Ray Stevenson has this ability to make potentially very cheesy dialogue sound completely authentic. When he says the pathway to Peridia, like that is the type of statement. Like I always think about Stallone in Guardians 2 when he talks about like the thing that Michael Rooker is never gonna see. Like, yeah, you're never gonna see the torches of this. And it just sounds so dumb.
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
And this is as a Stallone fan, I'm saying this. But Ray Stevenson has this ability, and he's not the only one. Like Alec Guinness could do it, but he has this ability to make these kind of broad, potentially over the top phrases sound very, very real and very grounded. And again, that's why he's just a phenomenal actor. In terms of the visuals, that kind of star map going over the shrine, like again, this is the stuff that I love to see in Star Wars. I mean, it's very Uncharted, but it's just I just love the visuals of that. And there are a handful of little scenes here and there where you can tell that they're on the volume, or a particular green screen shot didn't come out the best. This is not one of those. Like this looks like a place that you can go. Flash forwarding to the end where he is talking about Ahsoka's presence is elusive in the Force, but what she wants to do is very vivid. Like I think Vogel had said it on our Ahsoka recap that ever since the Mortis arc, when she was brought back to life, she has this unusual relationship with the Force, and perhaps her elusive presence is one of the causes of that kind of being brought back to life. But it's really great because you get the sense that Baylan is sort of a little reluctant. Like he knows what he has to do, and I can't remember the term that Elsbeth used, but basically when he's like, it's not something I don't want to do. It's like, it's the truth. Like having to remove these magical beings out of the galaxy to achieve this goal is a shame, because he's one of them, and they're the last of a dying breed. So again, he's just a phenomenal actor, and he breathes so much life into this character. And again, IVANNA SAKHNO doesn't have as much to do in this one, but again, I think she's doing a great job as well.
Michael, because I mean, Morgan mentions like this is from a people from a long time past, from the ancient stuff. So certainly it's a reference here to something bigger that we're going to tackle here through their storyline for sure. What do you think of the Morgan Elsbeth, Baylan, and Shin Hati storyline in this episode?
I mean, I really dug it. I dug all of the sort of world building dumping that was going on in all of this, because I thought it was super cool. And this is, I think this is one of the, we talk a lot about what Filoni does well. And one of the things that he does really well, and that the whole team in Clone Wars and Rebels has done, is not just repeating what George Lucas did, but really building out the universe, adding new things that we've never seen before. The Night Sisters of Dathomir, the world between worlds, the Purgil. And so with this stuff, like, so just like we talk about a lot about these space whales, if you're at all confused, like in Rebels, they met these space whales that could like travel through hyperspace on their own. And that's what Ezra used to get rid of Thrawn in the Battle of Lothal. But there's a lot of discussion about the idea that like the reason that people even discovered hyperdrive was by seeing what these whales did, and that before we had machines that could calculate hyperdrive to make sure that we didn't run into a planet or an asteroid, people traveled through hyperdrive using the Force. And that the only way that you could navigate long distances was by using the Force. So this idea that there's these ancient peoples and that the Jedi have these stories about the path to Peridia, like, and then even when you look at all of the awesome stuff that Shannon was talking about that was developed, there's these circles in the symbols with giant Purgil in them, the hieroglyphics of ancient whales. And obviously we see a Purgil sort of flying in the sky over them when we first get to this scene. So this idea of the whales picking up this thread, like, it's really cool, and what that means for like space travel and where we're going. I will say Path to Peridia just makes me think of Bridge to Terabithia every time. Like, I literally, every time anyone's like, oh, the Path to Peridia, I'm like, Terabithia, Bridge to Terabithia. But so I think like, picking up whatever ideas Filoni and the team had in Rebels with these Purgil and this hyperspace travel is really interesting. I've seen people on Twitter talking about, the fact that circles are big. We've seen the world between worlds in Rebels had all these giant circles. A lot of the hieroglyphics that we've seen in the Night Sisters temple in this giant thing, there's all of these giant circles, and that Purgil have like migration patterns. So maybe they're just, flying around, hyperspacing from galaxy to galaxy to galaxy. But this idea that we're going to see this galaxy outside of our galaxy, far, far away, that we've never been to before, and what have Thrawn and Ezra been doing there? I think a lot of people, kind of me included, kind of thought that they maybe went back near the Chiss Empire where Thrawn came from, and maybe he's been building his forces and Ezra's been prisoner or something. But it sounds like that's not it. Like, they went somewhere, who knows where, and who was there, and like, did Thrawn and Ezra end up having to work together to survive? Like, it creates all these questions that are really interesting. And then this Eye of Sion, is that what it is? The Eye of Sion?
The Eye of
Sion. The ship is called. Sion also means, the definition of Sion is a descendant of a notable family, which would also be called an heir. So Eye of the heir, or like the eye searching for the heir to the Empire.
That's a good point.
But Morgan Elsbeth, when she was doing the whole magic with the map to activate it, the green flame, which green is the color of the Sisters of Dathomir.
Yeah.
And also when we were on the ship, when we were on the Eye of Sion, the way that she was talking to everybody, those aren't our typical Star Wars holograms. It was sort of this green, sort of misty magic thing, which I thought was a really, really nice element too. It made it interesting. And as far as the content, echoing what you guys said, like, I think it's just way more interesting having a bad guy who's kind of reluctant about things. Like BAYLAN SKOLL being like, look, I get what we're doing and we're doing it for power, but I don't want to kill a Jedi if I don't have to. Like, it's just, he's interesting. Shin Hati's interesting because, like, she's just looking around with wide eyes being like, yo, master, what's going on? And then this Marrok is interesting because, Ezra or not, they did nail that thing that's hard to do, which is he's really cool, or she, but like mostly he's really cool. He's mysterious. We automatically want to know more about him. Like, there's just a lot of stuff going on that you're like, okay, I'm really into this and I want to know more. And even if he's not Ezra, like, this is a cool character. So I think they did a lot of really good lifting in these 2 episodes of just laying the groundwork for everything that's going to go on. And now these last 6 episodes are just going to be like a wild fucking ride.
Yeah, I can't wait either for this one. So agreed with everything you guys said. For sure, not much more I can add to that because, as it says, it wasn't much going on, but certainly there was enough to lay the groundwork that we're going towards Thrawn. And I think Disney Plus did a really smart thing, and Lucasfilm, of course, dropping both of these episodes at the same time. It's good to give us a nice groundwork. We understand what the teams are on both sides. We understand they're both going for the same goal, but in different ways and wanting to have different results in going towards that goal. And yes, we'll see where Ezra's going to show up. We'll see where Anakin shows up, because as you mentioned earlier, Michael, that scene with Hera and Ahsoka, you can tell there's still regret from Ahsoka. Certainly we know in Rebels where she fought Anakin, and it was revealed to her that it was, that Vader was Anakin. So all that stuff coming through this, I think it's going to be real interesting to see as we go on down the road. Okay, well, there you go. That's our spoiler review for episodes 1 and 2 of Ahsoka. We appreciate you all hanging out with us, either listening to us or watching it here on the Outlaw Nation channel. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram, at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey.
Buckle in, Rebels, because we're going on a wild ride. It is going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about all of it in very great detail. So definitely keep tuning in to these Ahsoka spoiler reviews, and here's what you can do for us while you're doing that. Hit that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, leave your comments below. What did you love? What did you hate? What are you curious about? What do you know? Is it Ezra? Is it not Ezra? Leave it all below in the comments. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. And as Michael said, we will be reviewing these as we go along every week. So join us everywhere here on the Geek Buddies on the Outlaw Nation channel. All right, you guys are awesome. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Don't forget our main show coming out later on this week. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek
Buddies!